Hello friends, you're with the Lonesome Gamer, and today I want to do a short review about the Elder Scrolls Betrayal of the Second Era by Chip Theory Games. Now I've played it you've seen my playthrough possibly, I don't know, I think I played it for 20 hours or so. I went basically to one campaign, and I can say I really enjoyed this game a great deal. So first, just let's talk a little bit about that, and don't call it a real review or whatever. Just want to talk a little bit about the game, what I like, what I didn't like that much, and just some ideas, some thoughts that came up while I was playing. So let's talk about components first. I mean, Chip Theory Games, they have their own style and they are famous for their high quality components. And I think you could definitely say what they did really well. The wound chips, they feel extremely cheap, and but you can upgrade them to high quality chips. I think that would be then like $40 or something. The chips of the other of everything else, the cash, the monsters, the heroes, that's all really a very good chip quality. Now I'm blanking out on the name of these. Again, it seems like this is all a great quality, but I want to be honest, I don't really need that. I think I would prefer cardstock tiles, a really very high quality cardstock tiles. I think I would prefer that over these playmats here. It seems like the colors don't really shine on this, and it looks all a little muddy and a little dark, and so maybe cardstock would have looked better, but I understand that this is the trend at the moment, and everybody loves this stuff. So it's fine. I mean, it really is. And I think the only real criticism that I have is the cards, the quality of the cards. I mean, I understand that they make this plastic cards and you don't have to sleeve them. They are definitely a good quality, but for me they're hard to pick up. It's not that easy. If you can bring them here to the edge, it's fine, but in the center of a wooden table, it is not that easy to pick up. You always have to squeeze them together. You cannot really just take them that easily on one corner. That's at least the way I feel about it. Maybe it's because they're very new, but that was a problem I constantly had here. Another, well, I don't know if I can call it a criticism, but the artwork doesn't really seem interesting to me. Now, it might be that this is following the art style of the computer game. I've never played the video game, so I cannot say basically anything about Elder Scrolls the video game. And if they want to follow the art style of that game, I totally understand that, and it makes just sense. But it looks a little bit, I don't know, it looks a little bit boring, a little bit soulless, a little bit generic. It doesn't really capture me. But on the other hand, it's not ugly or something. So it's totally okay. I absolutely love that they have these spiral books everywhere, and also really good quality with the pages. So if you page through them, they don't get damaged, and it's also really easy to just they stay open. They don't fold together by themselves or so. It's just great. You can let them open on every page, and just like this. And it's really, this is really awesome. And the rulebook itself is fine. It's really big, right? We got like 94 pages or something. Luckily, we have a good glossary at the end. And if you know what you're looking for, this works perfectly. And I have to say, I think I never really had to look up Board Game Geek. It's pretty much, it feels like a very complete rule book. But I'm not sure if it's necessary to bring that rulebook to a game which is relatively simple. It might be a little bit too much. Or maybe you could do this in a 50-page rulebook. But okay, I'm not complaining. I prefer a too large rule book over an incomplete one. So it's a good rule book, no question here. Last thing is the things like the packaging, the card holders, these die holders, the box itself. This is all absolutely high quality. They have the top of these things is thick plastic. It's nothing cheap. You can put it here on top and it's all perfect. This is just really, really well done. Now, I think, so before we get into this, I already mentioned I don't know a lot about the Elder Scrolls. I've never really played the game, and I think that this makes a difference on how I experience some aspects of this game. And we'll get to this in a minute. So I want to talk about first of all a little bit about the structure of the game. So that basically what you do is, maybe you don't. If you don't know it, that's why I'm talking about it, right? So you have these 3 big settings during which you have multiple encounters, usually skirmishes, and each setting, the first setting kind of takes me like 10 hours, the second one another 10 hours, and then during the end game maybe like 4 hours. That's what I was, but it was my first game. I could see that you can bring this down quite a bit, but I think that the whole campaign, I don't think you really can play this under 10 hours. But the really good part, this is a big pro for this game, is you can really easily save between the different sessions. There's a great mechanism, you simply place something here on top, and all the dice are held in place, and you have the card holders where you just put it back. It's very easy to save. So it really makes sense. You can really say, okay, I'm going to play this game for 10 hours. I'm going to put it aside for 2 weeks or 3 weeks. I'm going to get it back on the table, and then I play the remaining 2 sessions or something. This works perfectly. So if you don't want this massive campaign game which takes you 50 to 70 hours or something, this is really, for me at least, an advantage of this game. Now the way the sessions work is basically the single sessions. You have all these different maps of the different continents of Tamriel, the world where the Elder Scrolls take place, and you have for each of these continents a so-called gazetteer, and there you have, for each of the, I think, 9 or 10 guilds or so, you have a bit of a story going on, and they send you on different missions. And in addition to these missions, which basically give you a bit of an overall arc, you can get additional random missions that come here from a quest deck of 30 cards. And in the end, you're basically traveling across this map. You have your marker here, and each day you can move up to 3 spaces, and then there's going to be a fight, or you visit a town, or you have a so-called peaceful encounter. And after 12 days, you got to be fit for the finale of the session, and if you don't make it, you lost the game. And you do the same thing for 12 days in the second session, which is a little harder then, and after that you should have leveled up your hero or your group of heroes to a point where you can go into the end game and tackle the boss. And here comes for me one of the weaknesses of the game. I mean, on the one hand, you hear a lot that the stories here are pretty bad and pretty boring, and that might be true. But on the other hand, I mean, if you don't see it as a story game, but really just as a game where you basically go from one skirmish to another skirmish, and you have a little bit of background, so yeah, that you have some idea what's going on, then this is okay. But in the end, if you look at these quests, if you look at the fluff text here, this is barely more than you have in a Zombicide mission or something, right? I mean, if you have multiple Zombicide missions, you pretty much have the same thing going on. It's a little more maybe overall, but it's really, there's really not a lot behind these stories. And the maps, honestly, they feel similar. I mean, you have, I don't know how many, maybe 6 maps, and you're going to have more in upcoming expansions and all. But to me, they feel all very, very samey. I mean, all you do is you move your party 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, and then you have your encounter, right? And you got specific rules going on every map, but honestly, the things that I have seen were not real big game changers. So it really lacked the charm of, already from the look you can say that, in my opinion. Let's see Runebound, where you have your desert map, and you got your jungle map, and your Arctic map, and it all feels different, right? And also the mechanisms on the maps are very, very different. Here, yeah, I don't know. If it would be just one big map, I would be okay too, and I'm not too happy with that. However, and here's what I mentioned before, if you are into Elder Scrolls, this is probably a totally different experience, because then you know all these city names. Maybe you remember, oh, the Doomcrack, I remember when I played 2 years ago the game whatever, then there was this happening, and here's the famous Daggerfall and all this kind of stuff. So I can definitely see that this is much more appealing to people who are into this setting For me, yeah, it really was a bit disappointing. On the other hand, you have quite a lot of rules going on for this overland map, and it feels like it bloats the game, and yeah, I don't know. Maybe they could have done that a little simpler or whatever. But as I said, I assume for fans of the game, this is this could be great. This could be really great. However, so this is the overland part, right? But this game is not. It's not a real story game. It's not an adventure game where you have cool adventures traveling the map or something. This is a skirmish game. And if you see it as a skirmish game, it works great. It's really, really well done. And let's talk about the combat and the character evolution a little bit. So basically, when you have an encounter and it's a non-peaceful encounter, and honestly that's another thing, I'm not even sure why you want these peaceful encounters, because most of them are very boring. So if you have a combat encounter and you want them to get experience to level up your guy, so if you have an encounter, you get instructions to set these up. Now there are overall 3 different types of encounters. You got the clash, which only usually take place on this map. And there are multiple, I think there are overall 4 of these clash boards with different looks. But the looks don't impact the gameplay at all. I mean, there are no terrain effects. At least not from the terrain on the map. Then there are delves, like this, where you can explore the area. You have basically randomly generated dungeons. You can see here, you draw this type of tile, and you sometimes have an event. These are the enemies you spawn, and eventually you got something which looks like that. And I gotta say, I think this is a really cool random dungeon creation. You get your loot items placed on the board. You got legendary items, you got standard items. It's fun to open them. There is a little bit of a mini game going on. And then you got your random enemies placed. So yeah, that is totally fine. There's all the battles. You have only basically limited time. After 5 turns, you get penalties, and it gets harder and harder to continue the battle. And the last one is a pre-generated dungeon. So you can see then something that usually you have that during the end game or something. You can see something like, wait a second, something like this, for example. And they also instruct you where you got to place enemies, sometimes specific quest enemies, often random enemies. Now what's interesting is, you could think, hey, if I got a clash like that, and I'm always playing on this map, and about 70%, at least in my games, of the combat encounters were these clashes. Isn't that always the same? Isn't that terribly repetitive? You know, that's what I was afraid of first. But I have to say, Now, if you look at these, for example, this one. Now, this is a little bit of a smaller map. That's something special. First of all, the number of enemies you spawn depends on your experience points. And they did that in an interesting way, because it's not getting more and more and more the more experience points you have, but there are level 1 enemies, level 5 enemies, level 10 enemies, and level 20 enemies. And now let's say you have 21 experience. What you would do is you would spawn a level 20 enemy and you would spawn a level 1 enemy for 21 experience. If you had 19 experience, you would spawn a level 10 enemy, a level 5 enemy, and 4 level 1 enemies. So that's already a very different situation that you will find on the battle map. And also the different, you can see it here, for example, the enemies are also placed in different spaces on the map, and the strongest enemy, so the order in which the enemies are placed here, you follow these numbers, that also makes a difference. So the situation will change a lot, even if you have the same challenge multiple times. In addition to that, you have, it's not always like kill everybody. Sometimes you have to escort someone from one end to the map to the other. Sometimes you have to help a specific group of people and kill all the other guys from the other group. Sometimes you have just to, I don't know, assassinate a specific guy, kill him, and then you're good, and the others try to protect him. And sometimes you have to kill everybody. But there's really all kinds of different missions. So even in just one clash. So it is interesting what they actually can do on simply this single battle map. And probably the most important part are these random monsters. Now, I think there are about, I'm not sure, maybe like 25 level 1 and level 5 chips, all have two sides. And then you have 25 level 10, and on the other side level 20 chips. So you might have about 50 chips, and each side of them shows a unique monster. In addition, you have a few region-specific monsters. I think you got like 8 region-specific monsters for every region, if I'm not mistaken here, and you throw them into these drawbacks where you draw your monster pool from, depending on your experience points. And now, the interesting part about the monsters is that they're not only different in attack strength and defense, life points, range, these kind of things, but they also have these keywords here like divert, recover, stalwart, steal, aggressive. Here we have steal again, disrupt, maim, rot. So you can see there's a lot of keywords, and they really make the monsters special. And all these things, the placement, the number of monsters, the keywords, and of course your hero's ability, they make a really interesting puzzle of how you want to win this battle. You really have to plan every turn in advance, and also the limited time to make this work. If you just go attack the first guy, roll dice, and see what happens, that's probably going to be a problem. You really have to think these things through, and to me that was very enjoyable. However, all these different keywords, all these different monster abilities, that comes for a price. You can see here this and that. This is all these monster abilities, and I don't know, let's say we have here these 5 creatures. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we have 5 different keywords, 8 different keywords with these creatures alone. And this is not a terribly large group. So it is easily possible that you have, I don't know, maybe 10, maybe even up to 15 keywords going on at the same time. And you have to somehow remember all that. And this is not easy. You will constantly look this up. Maybe after a while, you will start to remember specific things, especially the more common keywords. But still, there is little getting around that you have to constantly look up this reference sheet here during combat. It's always going to happen. So the other part that makes combat interesting, apart from the design of the battlefield, and now actually there's one other thing that I want to discuss about the battlefield, and that's the delves. The delves feel a little bit weird. So this exploring of a dungeon, because the scaling of the difficulty of the delves, I don't know, man. I don't really get it. It's a weird decision. So the clash, we already mentioned that it's pretty straightforward. You place monsters depending on your experience on the clash, on this battlefield, and that's it. However, if you do a delve and you explore these areas, you draw these cards, and depending on the number of players, it tells you for each tile which monster to play. So when you draw this, when you explore a new tile, you draw this card. If you have a 2-player game, you draw a 5 monster and another level 5 monster. If you have a 3-player game, you draw a level 10 monster and a level 5 monster, and so on. And this is pretty much independent from the amount of experience you have. There is a rule that says you cannot place a higher overall level of monsters than the experience you have in a single tile. But I mean, toward the end of the game, you have like 60, 70 experience, and 10 experience, for example, in this situation, that's something you may have maybe at the very, very start of the game, but after 3 or 4 days, it's over, right? This rule doesn't matter anymore. At least I have that feeling. And this is weird. So it feels that in the first days, these delves seem too hard. And it feels then kind of matches during the end of the first session, and then in the second session, they really seem too easy. I don't know. I just want to mention that. I'm not sure if I like that or not. I mean, you could argue, okay, it's simply a specific type of quest, which is harder than the others. You can usually get more experience out of these than out of the others, and it's maybe something you can simply not do at the start of the game because you're too weak. I mean, okay, in modern games we're usually accustomed to scaling of your enemies, and that doesn't really work here. But maybe that's okay. Maybe you just do the delves later in the game and avoid them at the start, and hey, I can live with that. It's fine for me. So the other part that makes combat interesting in this game, apart from the design of the dungeons and the monsters, or the different monsters, are obviously the heroes. And this is, yeah, I guess the most interesting part. So first of all, we have the race, and I'm not sure how much races there are. There might be like 8 races or something. Now, I gotta be honest, I don't think they're terribly interesting, and I don't think they play very different from each other. I mean, each race seems to have a once per battle ability, but even that doesn't really seem to be a game changer. And then they got here their stats that they're going to change anyway during the game, and sometimes you have, I don't know, maybe 5 health, sometimes you have 4 health. Yeah, I'm not quite sure if that is if that's such a big deal. I mean, yeah, I guess they have to do this simply because it's the Elder Scrolls. You want to have these different races, but maybe they should have made them a little more different. The other thing is the class, and there you can definitely see a bigger difference. So the classes, they give you these special abilities that you can trigger using tenacity, which is a resource that you get from die rolling. And you have a novice side, and eventually you can upgrade this. You get a bit stronger then, and yeah, then you got these additional options here. Now, again, I have something a bit to complain here. I also wasn't too thrilled with the classes. Now, yeah, they are different. There's no question. They absolutely, but you got here like 5 different abilities, and I basically only played one of them constantly. That felt very strong, and I don't know, the others, I think I used the power surge once or twice, and I think I never used the other 3. Now you could argue, okay, that's just bad play, and maybe it is, but it was not necessary for me to win on the highest difficulty. So it doesn't seem to be mandatory to actually use them in all the variety they give to you to play well. And I find that a little disappointing. Here it was a similar thing. I mean, here I used a little more. The Infamous was quite cool. I also used the Timely Escape and the Caltrops a couple of times. But also, yeah, I don't know. Some of them just didn't seem too exciting to me. But these 2 are not really the big deal. The interesting part are the skill lines. That is the core of the whole game, you could argue. So basically here you got your stats, your life points, your stamina, your magicka, which is not terribly exciting. And then you got a couple of slots that are still free here, and there you can train different skill lines. And by that I mean you get these dice, and there are different leveled dice. This is a level 1, as you can see here on the top left corner. Then there are level 2 dice, 3 dice, and I think it goes up to level 5 usually. And sometimes single levels even have multiple dice. For example, here the two-handed level 3 has the momentum die or the executioner die. You can have them both. So, but you can only train a new die if you have the die of the next lower class. So I could only train a level 3 die if I have a level 2 die already placed here on the board. However, you can untrain dice, so you can remove a die to place a stronger die. That is all possible. There is a lot of customization going on, and you simply get these dice by paying experience points, and you can also increase your stats, so your stamina, your health points, and so by paying experience points. And these skill lines, these dice, they are really a ton of fun, and they play very, very different. From what I see, you basically have 3 different skill lines. You got your magic, or types of skill lines. You got the magic one, where you got, for example, here I had the illusion, the Daedric summoning, and the destruction staff. And that was really cool. I could do so many things, you know. I got your standard force shock, which is like a, I don't know, like a fireball or something. Then you got the wall of elements, which allows you to place different status die on the enemies, which makes them slower. You can give them fear, or you can I don't know, play a daze status on them. So yeah, they simply get weaker. And then we got things like the pulsar, which simply blinds an enemy and nearly takes him out of the game. Things like elemental rage, I thought that was also very cool. These treasure chests, you could basically make them explode and then distribute the damage to units that are adjacent to that treasure chest. And so this is really cool. Another one is the Daedric summoning, which allows you to... I mean, there's very different things. For example, here, these bound armaments, you could use them to support another adventurer, to give him additional attacks. This power stone simply lets you place a die on any side you want. But the main part here are these summoning options, which allow you to get to simply get companions, to summon additional creatures that you then can control on the battlefield. And that was just super powerful. I mean, toward the end, I had that bear, and he is really pretty cool. I could kill him, I think, and then simply basically resurrect him and then control him myself. And I had that neat combination with the sorceress, who could give who could take life points from enemies and then give them back to your companions, for example. So whenever he was hit and lost hit points, I could basically heal him, and he was great. So that was a lot of fun. The illusion is great too. You could, for example, what I did here is the Calm and Fury allows you to, when you get attacked, You don't take the attack, but instead the enemy runs towards you, and the moment he attacks, you get teleported to another space. If you do that in a clever way, you can really do interesting things. This allows you to place a decoy on the map, for example. The mesmerizing gap reduces the grasp, reduces the movement and the range massively. So there are so many interesting things. On the other hand, we have combat skills. Here the two-handed. I mean, here you obviously do a lot of damage, but that often comes with the price that you have to take fatigue or over-fatigue, which will, after a few attacks, could be a real problem. But man, there are some really powerful things going on. For example, this executioner, which allows you to take fatigue, and then you can simply kill an enemy that has less hit points than you do. So if you push your hit points, this just becomes extremely powerful, right? I mean, one good roll and you kill an enemy. And there are a couple of things like that, which is, yeah, just exciting. The acrobatics, for example, allow you to to run around the board, to get tons of free movement actions. You might even do damage. You can run through enemies with more advanced dice and whatnot. You got also things like, for example, lockpicking, which makes it easier and gives you advantages to open the treasure chests. You got speech, which helps you in social skills. You got more defensive skills. There is a ton going on. And it's really interesting to combine them and to build your dice pool when you attack, and to think about, okay, what is what I want to do? Because usually it's not simply done with, okay, I do a ton of damage. I mean, maybe it is, but especially with the mage here, with the sorceress, it was so interesting, you know. You might want to do damage, but maybe I also want to summon a creature, want to make sure that I cannot get attacked, so I want to teleport away, or want to blind someone. And it was really exciting. And also then you roll your dice, and then also the order in which you apply these dice could be interesting. So yeah, that is really a very, very enjoyable, well, I would say puzzle, but it's not dry. It's really positive. And of course there is also a lot of luck involved. If you roll bad and you don't get the results you want, you gotta improvise somehow. But very often there are interesting ways to get away with what you get. And of course you also have your items which give you additional options. There's really a lot going on here. However, there are actually not that many of these skill lines in the game. I mean, there are quite a few, maybe like 12 or so, but she had, I think, 3 skill lines, and I think he had, did he have 4 maybe even? Yeah, I think he had 4 skill lines. So we already seen basically 7 skill lines in this single two-handed game. So of course it's interesting, you can combine them in different ways and it makes a big difference. But I'm glad they come up with the expansions. There was a Kickstarter now, and we're going to see a ton of additional stuff, which will is something that I'm definitely waiting for. That's going to be a great thing. Now, all these tons and tons of options. I don't know how many different dice you have. I mean, you got like 12 skill lines, eventually maybe 20 or something. All of them have 5 levels, I guess, maybe 4 or 5 levels. And they all have their specific dice. So I'm not quite sure. I think we are talking about maybe, if the expansion is out, we could have like 80 or more specific individual skill dice. Which is insane, and again, just like these different abilities of the monsters, comes for a price. Because when you build your pool, you have to work with these. And they are double-sided, and you will have to check them constantly. Right? You're going to, what does that die do? What is my option here? Wait a minute, there was a die that did that. Which one was that? Let me check again. Yeah, I remember. Okay, how can I do that? Wait, does that work against that monster? Let me see, what was that? Yeah, that might actually work. But maybe, I don't know, there was something going on. If I spend some tenacity, wait a minute, yeah, okay, I can do that. And maybe you check the rules from time to time. So this is a thing in this game. And that's a big warning here. I really, really enjoyed this game a ton. But be aware, you're gonna constantly check these reference sheets for the monsters, for your character, for your skill dice. For the character, you're going to go a lot into the rules. There is a ton to look up. And this is simply part of the game. And that could break the immersion for some people, right? I can totally see this. It's not like in other games like, I don't know, Zombicide or whatever, where you just roll the dice and you can immediately see the result and okay, let's go on, grab the next 4 dice, and the next player comes and takes 2 dice, and you have to plan things out, you have to check what your dice do, you have to check what the monsters do, and you're going to do that constantly. And this all takes a while. It's not really a quick game. It's more a bit of a puzzle. Okay, so let's come to some conclusion here. There's a lot of other things that I could say about the items. Sometimes I feel they are not used enough, but that could be my own problem. I think some skills are a little unbalanced. The blinding seems extremely powerful, for example. But I don't want to go into too much detail here. This is such a huge and vast game. And I can absolutely live with some little flaws or something because the game gives me simply so many options, so many things to try out. But you have to be willing to commit to this game, right? It's not, as I mentioned, it's not a simple game. You have a massive rule book. You have constantly, you got to look things up constantly. It's an expensive game. It's really, really expensive, and it's a long, long game. And that's another thing. Maybe it's too long. Maybe the second session is too easy. There's also a lot of complaining, and I can understand that the game in general might be too easy. Now there are maybe ways to fix that. They came up with a downloadable option here where you can, where you have all kinds of, well, I would say maybe rules modifiers or game mode, different game modes, you could say, that makes the game harder. Haven't tried it yet. Some seem interesting. Yeah, so the game has its issues, no question, but overall, I have a ton of fun playing it, and it's really, really good. That's I'm into this. I love building these characters. I love thinking about the dice, what I can take, and on the other hand, it's not too heavy, right? The enemies are really easy to control. There's not a big complicated AI behind them like in Dungeon Universalis, but it's still okay, right? It doesn't feel stupid or something. It's still an interesting puzzle. And I would say for me, gameplay-wise, it's more interesting than your Zombicide or your Cthulhu Death May Die. There's more thought that you have to put into this when you do the combat, or more than in Runebound. But it's not as terribly long and super rules heavy as, for example, Dungeon Universalis. And in that way, it kind of hits a sweet spot for me. Don't get me wrong, I still love Cthulhu Death May Die, for example, but this is something, if I just want to play fast and quick, this is perfect. But this is the level beyond. When I have my combat situation, I want to think through this a little bit, and then, want to solve the puzzle. This is pretty much exactly what I want. So I can absolutely recommend this game. It's fantastic, but be aware it's has a couple of issues, and you need definitely some commitment, you need time, and also a bit of money. But yeah, great game. So yeah, hope to see you on the next video. Bye.